Oh, my goodness, not the daggers. Okay, yes, Aang, okay. You better break dance on them. Hey guys, it's your girl Aisha, aka Geek XX Chic, and we are back with another reaction to Avatar: The Last Airbender, the Netflix adaptation. We are now on to episode 4, which is called Into the Dark. So the last episode ended with our boy Aang being captured by the Earthbender soldiers. This is after he had quite the interesting and fun fight with Zuko in the marketplace. We see that Zuko followed him into this city thanks to the intel that came from Commander Zhao, and even though his uncle tried to warn him to keep it low-key, Zuko could not allow himself to do that, and they ended up having a pretty public fight where Zuko was exposed as being a firebender. So Zuko had to make his way out of the Omashu city before he got caught, and Iroh decided to take one for the team and make it look like he was the one who was the firebender and not Zuko. So it looks like both of them are now trapped in Omashu. In the meantime, Katara and Sokka were able to stop what would have been a very bad attempt at taking the king's life, and they're gonna have to figure out what to do now because Aang is now a prisoner, and well, I guess very soon everyone here is gonna know that he's the Avatar. So I'm ready to keep going with this story, so I'm gonna jump in, but just before I do, a reminder that if you'd like to be notified when I do uploads of this particular show or any of the other stuff you might be watching of mine, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button as well as the notification bell, and please leave some comments below and some thumbs up if you are liking what you're seeing. All right, that out of the way, guys, let's get into the episode right about now.
It's good to see you, young Avatar.
Is it?
It's all his fault. He started the fight and left you behind and ran away. I'm really starting to see what kind of person he is.
Ooh.
I
T.
doubt that.
What do you think?
That person's fine. They just fell down some stairs.
The Earthbenders aren't exactly kind to their fallen foes.
Well, I mean, I wonder where they learned that from, Fire Nation. Don't be acting that way. You make people into victims and then you get mad when they turn around and act like perpetrators.
No, it's not. It's a simple question. Were you helping the firebenders?
Yes or no?
Yes.
Sounds like I'm ashamed to call you dad.
Just minor designs, nothing of any value in war.
You
Anything
think?
can be turned into a weapon in the wrong hands.
Mm-hmm.
We do what we must.
Well, we think we must.
Survive.
My father would have never done what you did.
You don't know that, Sokka. You really don't know that. A lot of us like to think we would know that about our parents, but until you've been into a situation where you're literally between a rock and a hard place, and it's about the survival of the people you love most, you really don't know what you're going to do. It takes a lot of moral fortitude to not take the easier way out. Ugh. Zuko is like a bad rash. You just can't get rid of this kid.
What are you talking about? Looks exactly like a sky bison. It's supposed to be a badger mole.
Oh. Close enough. Oh no, not the snort. Snorts always make me laugh.
What happened here happened the world over. That's what a century of war will do.
And whose fault is that?
And a war the Fire Nation could end.
If it were only that simple.
It is, actually.
Victory or defeat. Nothing else matters.
Sounds like you just take him out. Simple solution.
Not even the loved ones lost along the way.
That's why Zuko's so hot to catch me? So he can win this war? For his dad?
I mean, on the surface.
It is I who owe him. Far more than I can ever repay.
The only way in or out is through the palace. I'm sorry. The Avatar's lost.
Damn, you just give up so easy.
What about the tunnels?
Oh, thank you, son. Looks like there is another way, Dad. Lost.
A fairy tale.
You told me you've seen them.
Right? Let's stop with the lies, Dad,
Stop
please.
the lie too.
Right? What's the truth?
Yes, there are tunnels, but they're unstable. Those who go in never come out.
Another lie.
Not just secret tunnels.
Haunted.
Secret haunted tunnels?
Ghosts.
We'll worry about that. Just help us get inside.
See what happens when people actually want to get it done? You give up far too easily, sir. For an engineer, too.
You're not as lucky. You're going to see the king.
Okay. Should I be scared? Does he have halitosis? What's the deal?
Any resistance and they'll send everything they've got at us.
Let them come. The Avatar has returned to the world.
Listen, Teo is speaking with all the bass his little voice can muster, sir. Take notes. That's quite the quite the statue. Is the king okay? Are we interrupting? Looks like he needs a nap.
Lotus root, pine bark, dried jasmine.
Hmm?
Tea?
Not thirsty, but sure.
He is the master of all four elements, the savior of the world,
Who told you?
the Avatar.
Who told you? The laugh. Oh, God.
Bumi?
Hello, Aang.
Bumi!
Relax.
How are you still alive?
Good.
Clean living, the right diet.
Good question.
Importantly, how are you still alive? I'm still a child.
It's a long story. Hot.
Pine bark?
You did
What?
ask.
Throw him
Yes? A party?
a feast.
Yeah! Bumi's my kind of senile. Listen, the man's over 100 years old. Something's gonna start to give after a while. Could be worse. Looks like he can still at least, use the bathroom. He knows, generally where he is. These are the important things. Pine bark? She's like, I got my weapon. Throw me in, coach.
You betrayed us.
Shut up,
Traitors, is that who you wanted to save?
Not everyone out there is the enemy.
psycho.
Life may be simple.
Why are you still in my face?
But here, you have to make hard decisions.
You sound like the Fire Nation.
I remembered she never wanted bitterness to fill my heart.
Period.
That's how I know you've ended up on the wrong side,
Exactly.
just like the Firebenders.
Thank you. There we go. You are. Worse, actually, because you're a victim first. Period. Don't you touch me. How dare you? New tricks! Good girl. You made her do that.
That's because of me.
That wasn't you.
Yeah. That was
That
my
was me.
mama. And her, of course. He has an audacity talking about that was me. Sir, did you raise me? Do you have fire or water bending blood to give me? The audacity. Men will have it, if nothing else.
Short ribs from Kangaroo Island. They practically jump into your
So
mouth.
he's vegan, first of all.
Seaweed stew.
Oh, thank God.
It really helps with your complexion.
I don't eat meat.
Right. Double check the broth.
Was this a test?
What? A test? No. More like a game. Come on. How bad could it have been, huh? The world is on fire. People are dying.
Yeah, I knew that was coming.
To sleep through it all.
Didn't choose to.
Have you been fighting the same fight for a century? Have you watched your whole world burn down
Again,
around
I
you?
was sleeping and not because I wanted to. Why is no one understanding this?
You may be 100 years old,
112.
but you haven't lived for 100 years.
This is true.
Not these 100 years.
You can tell this actor's got age makeup on. I was about to say, why wouldn't they just hire an older actor? But then I remember from the animated series why they're going to need someone younger. Kind of the same reason why Iroh's actor's a bit younger than some people expected. Are these the ghosts? They're just high hippies? I mean, they can be kind of terrifying, because some of them don't believe in the bathing, but they're usually pretty harmless. No, to the beat. Not Sock actually getting into it. Sir, on the beat!
That's what we're all about. Harmony, music, love.
Excellent. I hope you're all also about showering.
Tunnels probably aren't that bad.
You guys have been 2 inches into the tunnels.
No, these aren't the tunnels.
I was about to say.
Those are the tunnels.
Oh, those look super warm and inviting, especially the teeth, the jagged teeth coming down to just drill into your brain.
So they couldn't be together, but their love was strong, so they found a way.
Not this surfer accent. They couldn't be together, so the love is strong.
She could have destroyed them all, but instead, she declared the war over.
See, a woman getting it done.
The great city was named Omashi as a monument to their love.
It's beautiful. And a great mural.
Especially if you're going to go into the dark void from which no living being ever returns.
Aw, that's a sweet thought. Thanks, bro. Y'all got a dude I can bring with me? Just keep it chilling there. Okay, can we dance on the beat, though? Can we find it with a map?
Someone might be tempted to take matters into their own hands.
Someone. I mean,
Come on, don't hesitate to speak up.
that is the only shot you would ever make, is a cheap one.
And I've got all the time in the world.
So many of y'all know better than your oppressors. I get where they're coming from. The desire for revenge is real, but yeah, this is the thing, you know, with revenge and where it comes from. Just like Jet, you understand why these people feel this way, but they don't realize that they've sank just as low, if not lower, than the people that caused them to be in this place in the first place. Damn, Bumi's strong. Nice. Oh God. Okay, well, how many times can you do that?
I just wanted a bite of rock candy.
Mind your teeth, sir. That's probably why one's missing. And did that candy come from the floor? Two paths. Which will you take, Zuko? The deep philosophical question. Speaking of paths to take.
Map's unclear, but I got a hunch.
A hunch?
I get very nervous when men say that they've got a hunch when it comes to directions. Just past traumas.
You see that?
What is it, death? Because that's probably where you took us. Straight to death.
It said love is brightest in the dark, not glowy rocks.
Poetic license, like the minstrel said.
Thank you. Poetic.
When you couldn't even tell that a traitor was flat out lying to you.
Says the girl who fell for a terrorist.
I mean, you're both kind of in the same boat on this one.
Imagine if Gran could see us now.
She would have spanked both of you and put you in the corner, acting like this. That was a waste of water, bro.
He was on watch. The night you torched the Eastern Wall.
Personal beef.
By the time we put the fires out, there was nothing left of him to bury. Was it worth it? We were at war.
Yeah.
You were a butcher.
Kind of the same thing most cases. I mean, it's deserved, Dyro. Sorry.
War pushes us to the edge. Some of us don't like what we find there. I wasn't talking about me.
Oh? I mean, he has a point.
You know nothing of loss.
Ooh, see, that's where you're wrong. Just because he's not embracing your violence? I mean, the slap, was it deserved? Yeah, to some degree. But he's also a helpless, chained man, and you're taking all that violence out on him. What is it going to do? Is it going to bring your brother back?
Take comfort in knowing that Liu Tan will forever be hailed as a champion of the Fire Nation. His sacrifice will be enshrined in legend.
Such hollow words when you've lost someone for something as needless as war, and one that was started by their own grandfather. Now for the real words, not the ones my parents told me to say.
Studies weren't going well. Lieutenant gave me this. He said it should belong to someone destined to do great things.
That was sweet.
Because he was the strongest person I knew.
Oh, look at Zuko being a real human. Oh, he sat with him? Okay, I'm not gonna lie. That shit's touching. I get it. Fine. Oh, okay, I'm fine. No, guys, really. It's just dry in here. I have allergies to emotions.
Dad never had to bear that kind of burden alone.
Facts.
You had it harder than him.
Just a little acknowledgement. Thank you. The thing is with people like Sokka, because they're always cracking jokes, people think that they don't actually have deeper thoughts or real feelings, and they do.
All these challenges, games, tests, none that make any sense.
In 100 years.
He's like, just telling you quite frankly.
The Bumi I know is a fun, loving, happy kid.
That was over 100 years ago, Aang.
Who cares about responsibility? Who cares about, saving the world? Let's play one final game.
Okay, there. What was the name of that guy from those Saw movies? That clown? Want to play a game? But it is very sad that Aang is getting a lot of unfair judgment here. Like, they're acting like he wanted to get locked in an iceberg for 100 years. Like, he had no control over that.
Versus me.
Get naked! He's like, can you put your jacket back on? I'm only 12. Bad breath. Hot breath and spittle. All right. Zuko's got some strong ankles. Ooh, we got the back-to-back. It's one thing I gotta say. Earthbending takes a minute with these guys. You know how long it takes to lift up a rock? Yeah, he's got some extra heat for you, bruh. Oh, not the whip! Yeah, you can't ask for that.
We've all seen enough death.
I knew he was gonna do something like that. Woo! Yeah, well, Zuko has every right to completely, fully whoop your ass now. God, Zuko, bro! Oh yeah, water in the eye would actually hurt. How much water has she got in that thing? Feels like she used a lot with Jet and froze it, and now she had that. Like, is that an infinite canteen?
Katara, I'm sorry.
No, not the apology right before death.
What's going on? Are we dead?
He's like, that was rather painless, actually.
Love is brightest in the dark.
Thinks we love each other. Good thing we do. Oh, my goodness, not the daggers. Okay, yes, Aang, okay. You better breakdance on him.
Some of us have to fight even when we don't want to.
See the lessons being taught here? Beautiful. Oh, not quite high enough.
You'd have known about that if you'd been around, but you weren't.
How many times do I gotta say I was frozen in a block of ice?
Especially your friends.
I think that one is the one you could have definitely gone under, Aang. Not the quicksand. You of all people, Aang, you should be light on your feet.
It's time for the games to end.
Oh, Jesus, sir, isn't this your personal room? Why are you destroying it? Although I keep Okay, Aang. Well, the whole ceiling? I was about to say, though, I guess they can just rebuild it, right?
Bumi, I can't hold both of them.
Can't you?
Let it fall, and you win.
Bumi, this isn't a game.
Do I save this town or that? Who gets the last of the food scraps, the orphanage or the soldiers? Choices like that,
Yep.
day after day, year after
This is a very
year.
visceral example of what he's had to go through.
And learn what it means to be the Avatar.
There's one thing.
World
Aang is
doomed.
stubborn. Bumi's like, who the hell are you?
Are you okay?
I'm not exhausted, but I'll live.
Cheater! You cheated!
No, he got help.
You can rely on your friends. And that's the only way I'm gonna save the world.
Yeah, it's too big of a responsibility for one person.
You think like a child.
I am a child. 12.
Is that really so bad?
Yeah, children actually have it right most of the time, so adults are getting messed up.
But I'm here now.
He's like, all right, since you brought my horrible art from my childhood, I'm over it. Let's be buddies again.
Now, all of you, get out of here. The Avatar
Respectfully.
has places he has to be. But I do have one more challenge for you.
He's like, God, please, no. I mean, come on. Aang needed to ride it at least one. Not the cabbages. Come on. He needed to ride it at least one time, though.
It seems we are always getting on or off boats.
For Fire Nation, that's strange.
What are you doing here, Uncle?
Same as you. Getting ready to embark on what is sure to be a memorable journey.
You want to come with me?
I've come fully prepared. All the tea I need. How about a friend?
Yeah, he's not there just for you. It's there for him, too.
That I'm not to return until I find the Avatar. Which means
I may never
it'll
come
be a very
home.
long time before we return home.
He's like, good. I hate it here, and I hate my brother. Let's go, Zuko.
Everything I need is on this boat.
Period.
Like I said, all the tea
Yeah, so
I
let's not get sappy now in front of all the crew. Men. Zuko's like, I'd cry, but my eye's still healing.
What is it, Zuko?
Let's get you home.
Making the choice not once, but twice to protect his uncle. Good to see. Good to see. All right. right, well, that was episode 4, and I thought that was one of the more sentimental episodes of the season. I really liked that they touched more on the relationship between Zuko and Iroh. In the animated series, that was one of my favorite things about it, was the bond that the two of them shared, and how they both filled a gap in each other that they didn't realize that they needed filled in their lives. And it's interesting because one of my favorite movie of all time is The Karate Kid, the original one, like OG from the 80s. And one of the things I love most about that movie is that it's the representation of an older man and a younger man who both needed a presence in their lives, like a friendship, of course. But in the case of the young man, Daniel, he didn't have a father figure, and he kind of thought he was never going to have one, but he still needed one. And Mr. Miyagi, who was alone, he was a widower, and he would have been a father, but, things happened, but he needed that companionship in his life. And, I guess it could be like a son or someone he could mentor. And that's who Daniel ended up being for him. So really what I love about that movie is that it's very little about karate and more about the relationship that these two forged when they're so different. And they also come from two completely generations of life, but they end up having this beautiful lifelong friendship because they just, like I said, filled a gap for each other that they didn't realize that they needed filled. And Zuko and Iroh very much have a similar relationship. Like in the case of this episode, we find out what happened with Iroh's son. We have this earthbender who is very angry at Iroh, and we discover that he's got a very personal reason for his anger at Iroh. He lost his brother as a result of the siege that Iroh did, and they haven't really talked about it too much in this show so far, but in the animated series, we are very much brought up to date on the fact that Iroh was a very, very powerful commander in their military. His military exploits were way up there. He was feared throughout the world at that point because typically wherever he went, he won. And he was merciless. He was known for just whatever it took to win, he did it. There was no mercy. And Ba Sing Se in particular was the big one because they said they laid siege to it for 600 days. Folks, that 1 year is 365 days. That means he sat there outside of their walls for almost 2 full years. I don't think people understand how long that is. That is a long time to sit outside someone's gates. And of course, because they were out there, that meant that that city could not get trade. It could not get anything in, no reinforcements. They literally had to seal inside their walls and stay there, which, as we found out from that soldier, meant that people inside started to starve. People inside probably got sick. Valuable things that they would have needed potentially for medication or other things, they couldn't get them. Yet there were wounded and hurt people that they would have had to deal with and treat. So you can just imagine how horrible it would have gotten as the years went by, as the days went by behind those walls. And so for someone to have that level of determination, the fact that Iroh sat out there with his military for 600 days, and the only reason he left is because his son died. Like, he was prepared to stay there even longer, right? So you understand where this soldier came from. Like, dude, like, what kind of demon do you need to be to sit there outside of a gate for this long, letting the people slowly die inside? And Iroh knows this. And I mean, we haven't gotten deeper into Iroh and kind of what really fueled his change of heart, but we see that when the soldier was talking to him, he didn't really have anything to say back, right? The soldier was giving him a lot of attitude, a lot of judgments, and Iroh definitely could have gotten defensive. But in the beginning, we see that he doesn't say anything. And again, but he shouldn't, because this man has a very valid reason for why he's angry at Iroh and the Fire Nation in general. But then the cheap shots, and then the slap, and then all these things. Iroh finally says to him, and again, he doesn't say it in that moment because he doesn't deserve it, because truthfully, Iroh deserves to get worked over by a few earthbenders. Let's be real. A lot of people owe Iroh a smackdown. However, it's the spirit that this man was doing it in, that spirit of just hatred and bitterness that he was attacking Iroh with when Iroh is effectively helpless, which for those of us who know, he could have gotten out of there if he wanted to. But anyway, the fact that he was doing this, Iroh yelling at him and saying that war pushes us to the brink and it shows us who we are, and sometimes we don't like what we see. That wasn't about himself. Like he said, I'm not talking about me. He's like, you, sir, look what you're turning into because of the bitterness of this war. You're judging and condemning what I did, but here you are going down that same path and becoming the same person that I was, or worse. So what does that mean? Like, basically Iroh was trying to tell him that as a warning for him to really examine where he's going, and does he really want to go down this path of being, like I said, just as bad as Iroh was or worse. So it's very interesting that he brought that up. But again, Iroh does not feel good about this. He doesn't feel good about what he did. But like he said, it was a war. And that's the thing with war, and why I personally just never think it's ever valid or justified. It's because you're going to have both sides feeling like they're doing the right thing, right? The Fire Nation thinks they're doing the right thing. They've been brainwashed by Sozins and downwards that this is the right path, that the only way that the world's going to be peaceful is that the Fire Nation rules everything, and that there isn't any resistance to that rule, right? Any colonizer with a dictator at the top has had the same mindset. They've all had this mindset that this is for the best for everyone. I'm doing this because it's the right thing for us to do. So you got the Fire Nation thinking they're right, and obviously the people who don't want to be colonized or don't want these things to happen thinking that they're right to defend it. So that's all that Iroh was trying to point out, is that both of us thought we were right? At the time, I thought I was right. And of course, when you're in battle, a lot of times you have to do things to dehumanize your enemy so that you can go and do these things that are against human nature. And that's what Iroh did at that point. But then the man said to him, like, Iroh, you don't know anything about loss. And then we got the flashback to Iroh. Sadly, at the funeral of his son, we know that he does know loss. He knows it very personally. And we see that we hear the people say that he left the battle. Like, that's what ended Ba Sing Se, was him leaving because he heard that his son had been killed in battle, a young son. And just that right there was like the wake up call. That was the slap in the face for him, for the realities of that this war was not about just, I think death was very distant to Iroh up until that point, right? Obviously he would have had soldiers that died, and obviously he knew people were dying on the other side, but those were things he could keep detached. When his son, the one family that he had directly, was gone and taken by this war, that's when it really hit him that, wow, this thing can touch everybody. Like, no one's safe here, other than, of course, the royal family that's tucked safely away in the palace. So that was really his wake-up call and his pivot point. But again, this soldier didn't know that. This soldier doesn't know that Iroh suffered personal losses. And again, we don't even know. Maybe Iroh felt every single loss that he had on the Fire Nation side of things. We don't know what atrocities that he saw in the scope of his war, and his son might have just been the breaking point for him to realize he couldn't do it anymore. But anyway, really interesting conversation there. And then what I loved is that they had the scene between Zuko and Iroh where, you know, Zuko comes up and offers like the words that he's supposed to say to his uncle, but he recognizes that it's not enough. Like, even though, yes, they were kind enough words. And I've always said personally, I mean, I don't want to judge anyone who does feel comfort from the words that they were saying, but I've always thought it's very strange to tell someone, oh, well, you lost your child in this way that was really avoidable, but he'll be forever remembered and revered. Like, thanks, I guess, but I'm pretty sure Iroh would have preferred to have a living son over him being memorialized as a warrior. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's how Iroh felt in that moment as well. But I love that Zuko recognized that. And instead of just kind of leaving, he comes back and he's like, he shares a really beautiful moment that him and his cousin shared together. And he gives him this thing that obviously probably meant a lot to Zuko, but he's like, his dad needed it more in that moment, gives it back to him. And then he sits beside him to give him that quiet moral support during what was probably the hardest day of his life. And you can see now why Iroh said in that cell next to Aang that I owe Zuko, as far as I'm concerned. Like, he gave me something that I can never repay. And I think really what it was is that compassion and that empathy and that sense of just humanity in one of his darkest, lowest moments. Because even his own brother couldn't give him that. Ozai just gave him some, platitude and then walked away. And I think we can already infer that in the family of these firebenders, this royal family, that empathy is not something that was often taught. I mean, look what happened to Zuko, right? Especially between the men in these families. So it meant a lot to Iroh to have Zuko go outside of what he was taught and just be a human in that moment. And that's why he's so protective of Zuko, and why he said to Aang in that cell, you think you see what Zuko is all about, but you don't. You don't really know who this kid really is. Of course, the world sees his anger and his violence, but we're probably later in the series going to get more into why Zuko is like this. But yeah, I really, really like that whole story between the two of them and understanding more of their relationship. I love that they gave us a little bit more background on the connection between Iroh and Zuko, because in the show, we hear about a lot of things, and of course we see it through the episodes, but this was a very specific scene that was very touching, at least to me. So I very much enjoyed that. And then outside of that, we had Bumi and Aang recognizing that it's his old friend from way back when, and they have this interesting series of trials. They definitely changed things up a lot from the animated series when they did these trials, but I kind of like the changes in some ways. Like, this is a very different rendition of Bumi. It's not quite what I would have imagined in a live action version of him, but I'm not mad at it. It's more that they made him more serious in this one, because in the animated version, he was very kooky and for the most part quite lighthearted. But in this one, they made him a little bit more serious, and I'm not mad at it because, again, I think the show overall is trying to be a little bit more realistic and mature about the levels to which Aang has to go to protect the people he loves and to save the world. And I really do like the fact that Bumi, through everything that he was doing, of course he was doing it in a whimsical kind of off-kilter way, but he was really trying to get through to Aang how hard the last 100 years have been, because unlike a lot of the other people that are around Aang, they've only been around for, say, maybe at most the last 50, 60 years of the war, which again have been horrible, but still, a lot of the people alive around Aang were born into this war. They don't know any different. But Bumi and Aang right now, I think, are ostensibly the only people who remember what life was like before the war, right? If you've ever had the fortune of meeting somebody who's a centenarian, who's actually lived to be 100 or over 100, and you talk to them, it is amazing the living history that those people have. Because again, sadly, most people on this planet don't live that long. But if you meet people who've actually watched generations change and watch the world shift and grow and morph over so many decades, it's amazing to hear their stories and their perspective. And I always wonder like what their lens must be like, because when I think about just what I've learned in my years, I'm nowhere close to that, but how much more I know now than what I knew when I was like 19 or 20, I can only imagine if you add another 60, 70, 80 years onto that, right? So anyway, Bumi really had to make it clear to Aang what he has gone through, how hard life has been for him, the crazy decisions that he's had to make. And I think really at that end, the culmination point with the two large rocks, one over Aang, one over Bumi, and him saying, let them fall. Like, because basically his point was that no matter what decision you make, someone's gonna get hurt, someone's gonna suffer. It's gonna suck. There's no easy choice here, right? And that's what he was trying to say, is over the years, he's had to make hard decisions like which town to feed, which military support, where to send the military support, where to fight, etc. Like basically he said he's had to make heart-wrenching decisions where people have sadly had to sometimes lose their lives because of decisions he made. And that is a crazy weight. And that sadly comes with the weight of being a king or a ruler. But his point was that those decisions, the majority of them would not have had to be made if Aang had been there, if the Avatar had stopped the Fire Nation from being able to wage this war. And he's right in one sense. And again, his bitterness and his anger is justified. However, not enough people are recognizing the fact that Aang had little to no control over being in that iceberg. Okay, he had literally known he was an Avatar for 15 minutes before the storm broke out and he got in there and the iceberg happened. He didn't even do that. The Avatars channeled through him and put him in that block of ice. So people keep blaming Aang like a 12-year-old. Again, let's even put that into perspective. A 12-year-old was supposed to have the deep wisdom and knowledge to make this deep, hard literally world-changing decision. Like, come on, like, please, none of these people would have been in a position to make that decision correctly at 12 either. But they're sitting there acting like Aang was just, oh, I just want to be a kid. He's still a kid. He might be 100, but he's effectively a 12-year-old. And he was when this whole thing happened. So that's the only thing that's kind of annoying me, is that people just need to take a breath. The only person who's really been giving Aang any level of empathy has been Katara. Katara is the only person who's been like, you're 12. You're still processing. I get it. This is a lot. I'm going to give you some time to catch up. Everybody else was just coming at this kid like he should have known. But either way, all that aside, I really do like that the overall interaction between Bumi and Aang was for Bumi to really explain to Aang. And I love that line that he said in there. He's like, we might both be over 100 years old, but I have lived for over 100 years, right? And that's the reality. Aang has not lived through the 100 years. He slept. He got to sit there perfectly frozen in time. Bumi actually had to live, grow up, endure, and suffer, and go through all those things. And Aang has no concept of those things. It's very different. This is why I say that age makes a difference when it comes to the way you act. Experience cannot be replaced by anything but time. You cannot substitute. I don't care how smart you are. Aang could be the smartest man in the world, and probably on an intellectual level, he's right up there with Bumi. But on experience, he'll never catch up, right? They're completely different in completely different places that way. So that was really what the theme of this episode was with those two, is to help Aang understand really what people have gone through, and that if he does bump into people from his past, which Bumi is very much a rarity, to understand that he can't come to them and be like, hey, let's go play, because it's not the same. Things are not the same. things have changed. We're not the same people. So I thought that was a really good, deep message, but I know it definitely is very different in the way they handle things in the animated series, but I like it. As I said, I think it was much more grounded and realistic. And yeah, overall, I really like the way that they handled it. And then we, of course, had Katara and Sokka. They were very much kind of in the background of the episode. There's not much to say about them. They were just kind of going through their growing pains as siblings. You know, Sokka having to recognize that he can't just boss Katara around anymore and that he doesn't necessarily always take her seriously. And Katara having to acknowledge the fact that Sokka's had a lot on his plate as well and he's doing the best that he can. And that every so often she needs to just kind of, instead of just poking fun at him or judging him for his decisions, actually acknowledge the fact that this is really hard and that he's doing the best that he can as a teenager with an impossible job. So yeah, it was good to see them kind of work that through and then of course make it through the tunnel so that they could get to Aang, and they were able to help him out. And again, that other really good message about how Aang can't really do this alone. Maybe in the past avatars have been able to do all this kind of stuff without any help, but Aang is a very special case. He's not like other avatars and he needs his friends and they are there for him so far, and that's the best way for him to remedy this situation that's already spiraled over out of control for the last 100 years. He's not going to be able to do it alone. He's going to need help. So yeah, this is another really good episode. I think, again, I really like the messaging that we got with Aang and Bumi, and I really like the representation that we got of Iroh and Zuko's relationship. So yeah, I enjoyed watching it, guys, and I hope you guys enjoyed watching with me. If you did, please show some love to this video, and I will see you in the next one.